to install a snorkel on a 2009 Hummer H3T Alpha, taking it from looking like this to looking like this. And we're going to start by running through the parts that come with the kit. Starting from the airbox side, so we got this, which is going to adapt your snorkel kit to your air intake system that's already there from the OEM design. From there, using both your hose clamps that are not painted black, you're going to use this guy. And this guy is going to attach to your connector pipe and then to this bottom side of your snorkel here. So it'll go in that direction. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you keep it air and water tight. Obviously, the snorkel is kind of rendered useless without. And you don't want to forget to slip these two suckers on before you get everything all hooked up. And we'll go through that when we actually do the install. But it's always good just to slip them on right beforehand. And you might want to use some intake safe RTV around all of these joints just to be extra safe. So we got those two pieces. Then we obviously got your snorkel, and it sits on the truck on the passenger side. If you're looking at it from the front like that, and you can see it's not perfectly straight down. So on the template, you'll have to take that in mind. You're going to have to enlarge that hole. But it's fixed to your fender with these threaded inserts. There's 4 of them, and then on the bottom side is these washers that will go between your fender and the actual studs. So we got to install the studs into here, and we'll put a little bit of red Loctite on that. And then we got the stainless steel nylock washers that will go on after the or stainless steel nylock nuts that'll go on after the washer, and fix the snorkel body to the fender. And then we got this little bracket here that'll fix the snorkel upright, which there's 2 more sockets there, with 2 bolts. It'll go right to the A-pillar, which you'll have to drill out. So it's pretty cool. The kit comes with all your rivets, and they're all painted black, so you don't have to worry about that unless you scratch it up. So you're not going to be able to see that, but they're black. So, and then the last little bit is your snorkel head, and it's going to get slipped on the top. And they've even painted our clamp here, or worm clamp, black, so it'll help blend away into the system when it's all installed. So that's great. So other than that, you're going to have to grab yourself some Loctite. I just got a small tube of red, but blue will work too. You'll need an Allen key to set the studs in, and in this case 5/16 Allen key is what you need, and then a flat blade screwdriver. So let's start with installing the studs here. Get that sucker out. And then we've got these stainless steel, can't even probably see that, stainless steel little studs to put in with an Allen key head on them, but trust me, they're there. So you'll just put a small dab of whatever Loctite you have on the threads. We don't want this coming loose. In my case, putting on some red. I'll just start in one of the corners. Yeah, kind of blocking that, but don't want to go too tight because you'll pull the captive nuts right out of the plastic. So it's pretty simple to set these in there too, so you don't want to over torque them. The red Loctite's going to help keep them in there, and it's easy as that. So you can bang out these other ones real quick here. Cap back on and wipe off the excess, and that half is done.
So next we actually can start working on the vehicle. You're going to want to tape off the area that you're going to be drilling out your holes for the snorkel. This kind of has a couple of functions. It allows you to easily see where your marks are when you're marking out the template onto the fender itself as to where your holes are. It protects the paint as well. In my case it's the top of the fender, but a lot of vehicles it will be a more vertical surface. And here I am just making sure that the template does look somewhat accurate. It's kind of hard to tell with that bottom bracket, but you know, just to eyeball, just to make sure you're in the right zone. The first drill is definitely the hardest, but it gets easier, trust me. You just got to trust that you took your time, made the right measurements, and that your holes are in the right spot. And don't forget, your snorkel does have quite a body to it, so it will cover up any small errors that you may have made. Next up, you want to take out your air box. So I'm starting with the mass airflow sensor here. Be careful with those plastic clips, they're easy to break. And just taking the tube off of the actual airbox assembly just to give us some room to work. So next is just taking off the lid. Once you get that popped off, then the air filter, and then in my case there was just 2 bolts kind of lower down holding the lower half of the airbox assembly to the passenger side wheel well. And so with the impact gun and an extension, it was pretty easy to reach down there and get those 2 out. And it's funny how you don't really notice minor things. As I go to pull out the airbox here, I didn't see a small wire harness clip that was tied into the airbox. I edited out a lot of the the struggle that I had removing that, but once you pop that out, then the airbox comes right out.
Alright, so now it's time to add the RTV silicone. Picked up some stuff that says sensor safe right on there. That's what some of the instructions out there on the internet have recommended. And to be honest, it was only $1 more, so there's no sense not to. But just gotta grab something to cut the end here. Of course, it went in. So I picked there's black, gray, clear, white. Took the black stuff because I knew my shit was black. So so there's a little tiny hole here. It's a little drain, but I'm going to fill it because hopefully we don't need a drain, and I think that's the source of all the crud that I removed earlier. So just gonna give a nice healthy portion to the area I cleaned around it. And it's just down in there. It's all dark, so hard to see, but yeah, it's hopefully no longer going to cause an issue. Now the next part is we added this, and this is our attachment. So we have a rubber hose that'll go onto the end of here, and then it will turn 90 degrees this way and 90 degrees up this way, and that's what's going to attach to the bottom of the snorkel. So it's a bit of a flex joint as well as our connector at the same time. Now there's nothing holding this in at this moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a bead of RTV all the way around the outside, and then also around on this inside edge here. We got a whole tube of it, might as well fill our boots. And then I think I'm going to also grab the extra rivets, drill some holes, and also put the rivets into there, and then I'll be sure to put RTV on there as well. So super easy. It's kind of like gluing an art project here. Cool. So now the inside edge. Perfect. Alright, so the final little bit to securing this after sliding it on, putting on the RTV, is drilling a hole and then using one of the pop rivets that came with the kit to secure it to the collar on the actual OEM airbox. So you know, the kit comes with 7 rivets, and there's there's 4 sides on this, so 4 for here and then 3 for the bracket that holds the snorkel onto the A-pillar. So grab yourself a 3/16 bit, make sure you know where they overlap with one another. Alright, now this is a little bit extra. You don't have to do this, but since we went to the extent of sealing off that tiny little hole, it's probably the same size elsewhere. Grab some RTV, stick it on the end, slide the little guy down inside, and then you need one of these guys to pull the rivet through and finish it up. So there we go, she's all the way in. There, our rivet's in. There's a little bit of excess there, so you can actually use what's there to fill in the hole. Wipe my fingers on the table again, and just repeat that on the other 3 remaining sides. Alright, so now we got that part done. Now we just let it dry, and we can move on to something else while we're waiting. And the airbox portion is ready to go back in once it's dry.
So now we're putting the A-pillar bracket onto the body of the snorkel. This is just temporary so that we can use the positioning of the snorkel when it's installed to mark out those 3 holes which we need to rivet the bracket onto the A-pillar with. So temporarily installing the snorkel, you'll line it up with where it will sit and mark it with a Sharpie, as you can see that I'm doing right now. So it might take a little bit of finessing to get into the right spot, but take your time to do this, it's quite important. And then we're going to remove the actual snorkel once we're happy with our measurements, and then take the bracket off and just make sure that we actually are lined up how we'd like to be. So I have the bracket in my hand there, and I'm just making a final tweak and adjustment. The Sharpie tip was a little bit too thick to get into those holes, so I had to try a couple of times. So now I'm drilling it out with a pilot drill bit. It's important to do this so that you can stay exactly where you've got measured out and not wander. And then next I'm going to follow up with a drill bit that matches the actual size of our rivets. So it's pretty simple. And so I'm just going to let this speed through on the rest of this. While we're waiting for the paint to dry, we can now go to the inner fender and apply some RTV, and that pipe that I'm applying to is from the air box. And what we'll do is we'll slip on the rubber connector, and it will go from the air box to the snorkel body. And the amount of time it took to pull the wheel liner and do this was the right amount of time to allow the paint to dry. And so now we can go back, put a little bit of RTV on each of those rivets and in each of those holes we drilled to make everything watertight. Using the 3 rivets and the bracket, we can make sure everything lines up before we actually use the rivet gun to pop any of the rivets. And that's the last final step. So everything else is now final installation, which I will allow the video to play, and you can see the final procedure. Now it's just time to reinstall the air box and the air filter, and it's just the reverse of tearing everything out, and it's quite simple. And really we're basically done the install, so it really wasn't all that difficult. All you needed was a drill, hole saw, some tape, and a screwdriver, and maybe grab a buddy. And really the hardest part was just having the confidence to drill into a perfectly otherwise normal fender. And you know what, if you take your time and do a lot of measuring and you double, triple check, after that first hole, it'll all come a lot easier, and I'm sure you'll be able to walk away confident that you did a good job and that it looks good. And I encourage anyone to really do this install themselves if they have the space to do it and the tools. It's a really good learning experience, and if anything was to fail down the line, you understand how it's installed, and you know, you can diagnose and fix it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and watch out for more.